Welcome to Stutter Chats. I am your co-host Matthew. As today we don't have my other co-host Brandon. He's unable to attend today, but I'm thrilled for us to have you here today. I have today Richard Trigger Bontrager. How do you say your last name?
Bontrager. You got darn close. You were really close.
Yeah, I had to search it up beforehand to make sure I had to get it right. But introduce yourself, Rich.
Yeah. Again, Rich Trigger Bontrager. The brand name is Trigger. Been a professional sports broadcaster for over 35 years. I'm an executive presence coach. I help teach people media skills. We're all on these platforms. We're all on Zoom.
Yeah.
We're all on microphone. We're all on camera now. So everything I've done for 35 years, I now get to help you look better on camera. My brand promise is I help you shine on camera, shine on stage, to elevate you and your brand authority. And I have a lot of fun because besides all that, I have lived with a lifelong stutter, and yet I've made a career out of sports broadcasting, talk show hosts, and coaching, consulting for other people now.
I love that. I love that. I love how inspiring you are. I have looked you up. I've seen many videos of you talking. I have yet to see you stutter once yet.
Well, yes, I have, but you don't catch it.
But pretty much how this podcast works, we're gonna ask you questions to give us the best answer you can, and then we'll go from there. All right, Richard? You good for this?
Yep.
All right. I know you had an incredible journey from your days as a sports broadcaster, and to becoming a public speech coach. How has stuttering influenced your journey as a broadcaster and a speaker? And what were some of those biggest challenges that you had to overcome?
Wow, that's a great question. So when I first began, my stutter was very bad. Going way back to college, I started dreaming as a kid that I wanted to do it. I was a big fan of the Chicago Cubs, Harry Carey, Cubs baseball, and I would listen to Harry Carey, and I said I want to do it. I found out through high school, even college, broadcasting school, my teacher said, "You're a great voice, wonderful voice, but you stutter. No one's going to hire you to do the news." So the first thing I learned was that I cannot do hard news. Still to this day, I can't do it, Matthew. I get too emotional. I get too excited. My tongue gets all tied up.
Yeah.
And I don't like that feeling that overcomes me. So I'd always dreamed of being a sports broadcaster. So the more I found out about ad-libbing, not scripting myself, not using a teleprompter, getting into sports broadcasting, then it was like, that's my creative spot. I'm a creative. And the more I was allowed to be creative, the more I grew in the craft of broadcasting. And to this day, I do not use a teleprompter for all the shows, for all the things I do. I take notes. I have them off to the side. And then it's stay in the moment and be very spontaneous and make it personal. The more personal I am, the better everything goes for me because I'm having fun with you. No, I'm not worried about all these gadgets and gizmos and other things. So I just stay present in the moment and ad-lib as much as I can.
I love that. I love how you said being present, and being present nowadays, people are lacking that. I feel just even if you do not stutter, people still like being present. And that's because of technology everywhere. And like you said, like how you became better is by being present. And just to follow up on that, was there a moment, was there a breakthrough for you where you thought, okay, I could make this a career for myself? At what age was that? And who inspired you?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Okay, buddy, you got it coming. And there were two major events. So before my real college career took off, I did get into acting. And I'd always wanted to act, of course. But again, stutters don't act. But actually they do, I found out now. But I got into an acting thing with my church ministry, and I traveled over 10 weeks, and I got to play the big, heavy Roman soldier, the bad guy. And I kept tripping over my line and tripping my line, tripping over my line. It's the week of the final dress rehearsal, and I still don't have it down. This forever changed me. A dressed up. We did it. The final dress rehearsal was in front of 600 people. I walked on a stage and I hit every line, every emotional, every flex of energy I was supposed to hit that I had not done. And my team looked at me like, what happened? And the second thing was on the sports side, as I got into it, I began to do, I had a great partner. We were together on 3 different radio stations, 7 years together. And I got to know people at the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I got to know them so well on game days. Trigger could walk in, walk through the gate, go downstairs with all the broadcasters and hang out before the NBA game. So I got to know Kevin Harlan, who's now famous for football, basketball, amazing broadcaster. I knew him as he was starting out with the Timberwolves. And we were literally talking about my career. It was rising. And we were trying to figure out how to brand me because I like popping off. I like having fun. I ad-lib a lot. And Kevin said, no one's going to get Bontrager. It's not going to stick. It's not going to work, kid. And when we stumbled on was Trigger, because people do try to turn my name into Bontrager, other names. That was part of it. And the other one was, you're always popping up. Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
That's your personality, and that will be your brand. When we locked in on all that, Trigger took off. Then there are now 8 pages of Google, as you found out, for Rich Trigger Bontrager. But that was the confidence boost of having Kevin Harlan identify who I was and say, you know what? Put it all together. Don't do the news. Don't do the rough stuff. Do what you do, and it will take off, and it has.
That's awesome, man. That's great to hear. To have such a great person to look up to, that's awesome. I'm sure that's even boosted up your confidence even much more.
Yes, it has. Now, I've not met him for years since then. We have not seen each other in person for 30 years.
Yeah.
It would be great sometime to sit down with Kevin and go, you know what you started?
And just going into sports, I'm a big sports guy. I love sports. I could talk about the Miami Heat all day, about the Miami Dolphins. Let's not talk about the Hornets. Even though I had them, let's not talk about them because it's been a tough 30 years of my life. But when did you find out that you stuttered? How did you find out?
So I just recently interviewed my entire family for the first time ever about a stuttering special I did.
Yeah.
We had never talked about. My mom stutters. No one else in the family does. I stutter. So the whole genetic conversation was it. I had them actually interview and talk about their upbringing with me, what they saw, what they went through. My mom made a comment the other day and said, I don't think you stuttered before you had epilepsy. So I had a brief run of that. And when I reached puberty, that went away. But it was very interesting. My mom said, I don't think you stuttered until I ran into a fence, fell down flat, and passed out. And traumatic events are part of the trauma or of the stutter, they say. Yeah. And I went, wow, how we never talked about that. So again, I've lived all my life with it, but now we're reflecting back. That may have been the beginning. A head injury may have been the beginning of it.
Maybe, yeah. That could be. That could play a part. Trauma is always something that could affect anybody in long term and how they go about things. But has there ever been a moment when you're like, I know you've been doing public speaking for a good 30 years now, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Can't give me the shut up.
Yeah. How do you practice beforehand? Because people that do stutter always have that fear of getting stuck up there. And how has that been? Has fear? Did you have fear going into it at the early age?
At an early age, yeah. I practiced and re-practiced and stood in front of the mirror and did all the things that we used to learn from public speaking. When I began to go through that transformation of step in the moment and releasing my creativity, I found out the more that I do not over-plan, the better I am. Which goes against many of the stutter techniques of practice, rehearse, memorize. I know my stuff. I read it, I write it, I do it. But I usually walk out on stage and I don't use a podium. I hate them. I like roaming free and walking and talking. So I'll put it off to the side. And if I draw a blank, do it out of order, I'll go take a look at my script. But most of the time, I'm right here talking to the audience, engaging with them. And it has allowed me to stay fluid again, like I talked earlier. I am now an ad-libbing. I'm a storyteller. So I know my stuff inside and out. So if I do blow it, first of all, if I do blow it, I will go, all right, everybody, have a laugh with me. Take two. It releases all the tension for me, for them. And then I can get right back in the flow and pick it up. So part of it is me admitting I stutter. And as you know, most stutters want to hide it. They don't want to talk about it.
Of course.
And I lead out that this is what you're going to get. I'm okay. You can be okay. Relax. And now I just get in the flow and do my stuff. And in the beginning, I was highly scripted. I had my cue cards, my notes. After I found out that made me worse, if I just did it, it always has been better. I rarely ever have a panic moment or anything ever more.
Yeah, it's like myself right now. I'm starting off this podcast. We're at number 7th episode today with you, number 7. So big congrats on myself and my co-host. We both started this out, but more that we do this, the more comfortable we get doing this. And I feel like every time I have an interview with somebody, it gets better. It gets better. The flow gets better. I know myself. My co-host will also bounce off me. I will bounce off him, and that's key. Just being repetitive with things.
Yeah, and learning to bounce off, like you said. I did a show earlier today with one of my media partners. We've done numerous shows, but we had that chemistry where we can bounce off, we can interrupt. No one gets angry, no one gets upset. And if I stutter or bumble over something, she'll jump in and she'll have fun with me so we both can relax and have fun. Having that chemistry is so important. And most people that hear us stutter, their body freezes, they get tense, they get worried for us. They don't know what's going to happen. So part of the release valve is let them know, I'm okay, you're okay, take a breath, and it helps everybody. It really does.
It does. I've got, when I was in college, I had to, first time ever, I was speaking in front of a whole class. I wasn't as confident as I am today, 100%. If I was, I would not be doing a podcast. I would not be talking in front of. So,
I used to run out of the room crying from reading books out loud in school. I ran out howling because I wanted to read so badly. But that's another story.
But have you ever had that one time where you're talking off the stage and has anybody from the stands ever been negative towards it, or have they said anything to you about it, or have you got any sort of feedback from it?
I've had people afterwards, usually the people that have hired me, and I tell them in advance, I stutter, it's part of the shtick, it's part of the routine. But when I get done, usually they come and go, a couple of times, it looks like the stutter got you. That was kind of weird because we're paying you to speak and coach and teach us something. Part of what I've learned, again, this is part of that taking the mask off and being real. My introduction is, now here's Rich Trigger Bontrager, professional broadcaster for over 30 years, talk show host, media expert. And the guy who stutters for a living is going to help you shine brighter on camera and mic. And they all laugh. There's this big laugh that comes out because the question in the mind is this guy going to mumble and bumble all the way through this like a train wreck, or are we going to learn something? And so I lead with that, and then I talk it through why I do what I do, how I do it. I talk a lot about this. For me, it was the speed of my brain and the speed of my mouth growing up. When the teacher called me, I got excited. I could finally answer the teacher. I was so excited to give an answer. And then the brain would go, don't. When I figured out the rate of information, the rate of my mouth has gotten me in sync, that was another trick. that unlocked it for me. And when I tell that to people, other stutterers say, "Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to figure that out. I thought my tongue was just going to magically fix itself."
Yeah.
It's like your brain and your mouth are tied together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Usually I get more comments like that than the negativity. Most comments are, "I never thought it from that way. I never considered that way." And it's really fun to be in the room because any room over 100, there's at least one person, if not two people, that stutter in the room probably.
Probably, yeah, 100%. 100%.
And it's a blast to share the truth, the reality, the pain, the fun, and give people hope.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's good to hear. And just one question. Just that one question I ask everybody, all my interviewers. What is that one piece of advice that you will give somebody that does stutter, or somebody that's looking to become a broadcaster, somebody that wants to become a public speaker, but they do stutter? What's that one advice that you'll give them?
The number one advice is go for it. I hid behind my stutter for so long. I tried to pretend, to fake it, and only made it worse. My grandmother taught me to accept it. My grandmother was the one that taught me how to do voices and allowed me to do voices while trying to read comic books out loud. And the more I embraced the creative side that was trapped inside the stutterer, the more I could go forward. And most people that are public speakers, broadcasters, were all creatives. So the more you embrace your nature and let it come out, I've seen it over and over again. The stutter is lessened. You learn how to manage it because you're living in your creative space. So if you're talking about speakers, live in your space, man.
Listen, that's awesome. That's awesome. But I appreciate you, Rich. Appreciate taking your time. I appreciate you reaching out to me. That's something I have yet to happen to me. So I appreciate you reaching out. I'm glad I'm getting the word out there, and people are reaching out to me to join. I appreciate you, Richard. How can somebody find you? How can they know more about you? How can you promote yourself right now?
Yeah, well, the easiest way is trigger at rockthestagemedia.com. That's the email. I take care of all my email. Nobody else does. So trigger at rockthestagemedia.com. The other one is I do have a the Rock the Stage Show YouTube channel. You can always go find that on YouTube, Rock the Stage or Rich Trigger, Bontrager will get you there. Follow, like, share, and I do talk on stuttering. I'm launching a brand new channel about stuttering and finding your voice. We all have a voice. Stutterers are afraid to use it, but I'm doing a channel about finding your voice. So go check this out and see where it all goes.
That's awesome, Rich. And appreciate your time, Trigger. And hope we'll stay connected and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Matthew. Great to be here.
All right. Take care, man.